News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And a very good morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the News First studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And it's a wet day out there. It's seriously, the puddles have started to accumulate. So as you go about your day later on, do take care. Now then, the economy in disarray, banks flourishing. Can this be true? Well, we've got with us a non-banking financial specialist with us, 35 years in the business and recently retired, and the founder of Infonets is Mr. Prasad Edrisinghe. Very good morning to you, Mr. Prasad. Thank you for being on Newsline. So, is it true? Can it be so? The economy is in disarray, and I think everybody will agree with that bit.
Yes.
And the banks are flourishing, which is also true because we looked at the figures.
Yes.
So can this, isn't it an anomalous situation?
Yes. As I say, this has been there for some time, but only thing is it was not highlighted due to some reason. So as things are happening now, it is being highlighted because the NPAs of banks started to go up now.
These are the non-performing advances.
Non-performing advances.
Right. Okay. Also known as non-performing loans, right?
Also known as non-performing loans.
Right.
Because it has gone up to 255 billion from something like 160 billion.
Over what period of time then? Has it gone up?
Yeah, this
Over
is actually
1 year or 5 years
within a period of 6 months, within a period of 8 months.
8 months?
8 months.
Okay. So in a period of 8 months, our debt figures are bad debt figures.
It's not bad, that is non-performing.
Yes, it's over 3 months.
Yeah, when you say non-performing,
Yeah.
now banks treat the loans. Let me explain what is NPA, because when a facility is booked, when a facility is granted,
Yeah.
it goes on accrued basis.
Right.
Income is identified on accrued basis. That is, say you grant a facility today, though the customer pays it or not, you identify the income into your books. So if he doesn't pay continuously for 3 months, then bank identify that as a non-performing loan.
Right.
That is, if customer doesn't pay. But till
What happens if the customer pays part of it?
yeah, it all depends. If it is say less, if the loan is less than 3 months in arrears, then you don't take that into NPA category. It can be in part payments or in full payments.
So even if you made part payments and if you owe some money at the end of that 3 months,
Yeah,
then it's not performing.
it's
Or not.
non-performing.
Right.
It's non-performing.
Right.
So what happens is after it goes into non-performing,
Right.
then it stays there until he pays that in full to bring that back to performing category.
Right.
Right. So you have to the customer will have to pay that in full to bring that to performing category. If not, there's a mechanism of doing a reschedulement with the customer. So, but only thing, when you do the reschedulement, you have to wait for some time to bring that back to the performing
So
category.
there's like a gestation period.
That is right, exactly correct.
Right.
Because like he'll have to continue to pay, because he'll have to prove himself
Again.
that he is capable of servicing the rentals or the monthly commitment for next say 3 months or 6 months or
What
whatever
is
it
that
is.
gestation period? Is that a central bank put in?
There's a regulation given by the central bank that it's if I'm not mistaken, if it is more than 3 months, you have to continuously service the rental for 4 months. So then it is categorized as performing. If it is say more than 6 months, it is not 4 months. It is 6 months or that category. So that comes back to performing category. So in non-banking financial industry, it is not 3 months, it is 6 months.
Right.
So after 6 months only, they categorize those facilities as non-performing.
Right.
So this is the basis on which that NPA is categorized.
Right. Okay. Now, so how are the banks flourishing then?
Well, that all depends on their loan portfolio, because they keep on granting. And as per the information presently available, they basically grant most of their facilities to, say, construction field industry, as well as they build up lot on credit cards. So these, as I see, those are like, especially if you take credit cards, those are not productive instruments as far as the economy of the country is concerned.
It's a consumption thing.
It's a consumption thing. So this is where the concerns are.
So, but in all this, you're not mentioning the debt trap that Sri Lanka is apparently getting into, in terms of the people further down the finance sort of sector,
Yeah.
the rural areas, the microfinance, where the rates are extremely high.
Yes.
And yet the banks are not, are the banks involved in that?
That all depends, because mostly banks don't get into that level, because that is where the non-banking financial industry comes in, because they play a major role in bringing these customers to banking
To the
level.
mainstream.
Yeah, to the mainstream. So they basically, now I have been like writing on this particular subject for nearly now 5-6 years, because they are the frontliners. They go to these preschool children of the economy and they build them up. They take the risk. They build them up and they bring them to the level of the banks. And then banking industry, they grab those customers. And they are in after, they are not non-banking financial industry customers, they are banking industry customers.
Right. Now tell me, when you are in the non-banking financial industry, write down the order.
Yeah.
How do you control the money that the customer borrows? I mean, are you all lending for productive or consumption?
No, basically we don't lend for consumption.
Right.
We lend for productive.
So how, do you all play a role in that? Do you all check whether actually the money given is for some productive purpose?
Yes, because basically we have been into leasing.
Right.
We have been into leasing. So when you say leasing, mainly we were dealing with lorries. Those
Yeah.
are commercial vehicles
Yeah.
and buses,
Yeah.
and say some cars and jeeps also.
Yeah.
But only thing, mainly those are productive vehicles which give something, which contribute something back to the economy.
I see. But how does this get out of hand where they're paying a lot of money? I mean, the polymodalalis are probably charging
Well, what happened was, over a period of time, with this new regulation, LTV coming into the picture, that is loan to value ratio,
Yes, at the
Where-
moment it's what?
it's 50%.
Right.
So the customer will have to contribute 50% of the value of the vehicle. And the balance can be given by the non-banking financial institute or the banking financial institute.
At 50%, it sounds to be a rather safe bet.
That's the thing. So it's risk. Basically, as a financier, I see that's a risk-free element there.
Yeah.
So there, what is happening at the moment in the market is, when the customer contribute 50% of the value of the vehicle, it's risk-free, and banking industry, their rates are low when compared to non-banking financial industry.
Right.
So they have a good catch there where they can capitalize on. So from the other hand, this informal borrowers from the local market, they are capturing the other side of the non-banking financial industry. So as a result, day by day, non-banking financial industry, the area is narrowing down.
Right. But what's happening to those people who are, now you're talking about leasing,
Yeah.
but what about these small-time farmers and so on who are borrowing money?
Well, it's like this. We were basically not into that market segment.
Right.
We were basically
But,
into equipment leasing.
Right, but that's one segment. The other segment is this segment where they are taking maybe much smaller loans, but at huge rates of interest.
True.
Now, where does all this money finally, where is the source? Where can one trace the source to? Can you trace the source to the banks?
There's a possibility.
Tell me this possibility. How could it be true? Or is it true? You have the banks, and then you have the small lenders, the non-collateralized borrower right down the end, but the banks up here. So in a way, the banks are like the manufacturer, if you like.
Yeah.
And then you get institutions further down in the middle, shall we call them wholesalers? They borrow the money from the bank
Yeah.
at an advantageous rate,
Yeah.
and they fit the bill for, that fit the criteria for a bank to lend to them.
Yeah.
Then these wholesalers, through various agents, they lend the money down the order at very high rates of interest because it's non-collateralized.
Right.
Is that a possibility? Is that what's happening now? So that when you look at the bank's balance sheet, it doesn't appear that they are actually in this market. But they are in the market. If they are lending it, they're kind of de facto lending it down there, but they're lending it through their wholesalers.
Right. True. This is what exactly has happened in US. US market also, the principal money lender didn't know where the money goes. It was like going in step by step down to the lower level, where the down level people have been funding the normal people in the society.
Yeah.
So a similar thing can happen here also. As I see at the moment, it's not happening in large way, but there's a possibility of happening that in
what
that
about
manner.
what about NGOs then?
Well, NGOs, of course,
They're not regulated by the central bank.
True. I mean,
because they don't accept, according to the central bank, anybody who comes within their regulatory mechanism would need to accept deposits. And so if you're not accepting a deposit and you're lending money, then the central bank isn't regulating you.
Well, there's no, because you get another market segment by the name of SLCs, that is specialized leasing companies, where they don't accept public funds. They basically, they are basically being funded by banks. So we have another market segment called SLCs also. But in addition to all this, you get people operate lending institutes with their own funds. So the
where
funds,
do these funds come from?
Exactly correct. Because no one knows from where they get their money.
See, it could be money laundering. I mean, it's one possibility.
There's a yeah.
It could be the black money. It could be the funds that are used in corruption, in graft, sleaze, and all that. And then that money finds its way down there. What I'm calling the black money.
Yeah, there's a possibility, but only thing so far, I mean, there's no way of like detecting it so far. So,
but what will happen, Mr. Eddie Singer, is what has happened in the UK. You had payday loans.
Yes.
Short loans until the payday.
Yes.
But they were at huge rates of interest, and we had a case of I suppose I can mention it now. We had Wonga, for example, who charged you an awful lot. The APR was several times more than what it was locally.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the Financial Services Authority, even though Wonga didn't fit the bill to be regulated by them, they stepped in the wider interests of the financial industry anyway, so that people wouldn't get into this debt trap. And eventually, of course, a few months ago, Wonga crashed. They went bust. Now, we have a similar outfit here now. They just started. And they give, again, pay these payday loan services. they are lending money for 10 days, 15 days, or 30 days. But the APR is 365%. Okay, we understand it's non-collateralized and so on. And then you have all sorts of, they're not regulated. So I know of a case of one of our viewers who's borrowed money. It's all done online, you know, on your telephone or whatever. And they never told him about a admin fee. When you add the admin fee to the small amount of the loan,
Yeah.
if it's 10,000, the admin fee was 1,000.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of money. So by the time you add that
Yeah.
and you include the whole thing,
Yeah.
the APR is going to way over 500%.
True.
Now that sounds to me is ultra dangerous.
Well,
That's the one point. And you know, back to these NGOs. We have a viewer who is asking this question. They're wondering whether the banks are lending to the NGOs, and the NGOs then share their profits in a way with the bank.
there's no hard and fast rule. Know your customer. There's a KYC.
There's a KYC, yeah.
KYC is there. But there again, it's up to a certain limit because you can't go into all these details because if the customer declares that he's into this business,
But you need to know.
you need to know.
That's why the KYC is.
That is right, true. But there again, after declaring also, there's a possibility of like lending that to unknown market segments. So that you can't avoid fully.
Right.
And the other hand, what I could
But
say...
you can't avoid it fully, Mr. Edisinger. But if you like, my bone of contention is that I would really like to see the central bank getting more involved in the monitoring process of this. Because, you see, because at the end of the day, when these blessed things crash, the general public have to pay.
True.
Golden Key was one example. You know, where the central bank had to step in. But they were never regulated by the central bank. And that to me is an abysmal failure of the central bank. Because they watch it. You know, all you have to do is take some of these newspapers and look at the advertisements that's there. They're all sort of fancy rates and so on. And in the case of the company I mentioned, Golden Key, eventually they said, oh well, you know, they were not. We didn't regulate them. Well, why? But you saw them advertising and attracting funds. Oh, they were not deposits. They were not deposit takers. Well, customer didn't know all these finer points, and that's what's happening now as well. And eventually, what will happen is that the people right down the pecking order who need to produce, they are borrowing money at very, very high rates of interest. How do we address that anomaly?
Well, these lending and deposits, like it's on the two sides of the coin.
Yeah.
So, like now you are talking about the people who are depositing money
Yes.
and the risk element involved there.
Yes.
But they, at the moment, they don't go and invest monies in unregistered. So I would say. Not regulated by central bank industry companies.
Yeah.
They go to registered finance companies or to banks and they invest. But now, not like those days. Right now, what is happening here is they invest money in regulated bodies.
Is it a case for why can't the Auditor General? Can the Auditor General audit these banks? And to find out where actually the money is, where their income lines are from. This word forensic audit has become very popular after the bond scam.
Yes.
But it's a lovely tool because it will then extract all sorts of information that the public can then see.
Yeah.
So why is it possible for the Auditor General?
Yes. There's a possibility. Yeah.
For the Auditor General to audit these things,
yes.
because it's in the national interest.
Yes. They have all the sort of powers to look into these details.
Yeah. In a way, the banks are sort of playing the system. because they have their money, which they then get at low rates from international agencies and wherever, and of course the deposits that they have.
Yeah.
Then they lend it to these people like what I call the middlemen, the wholesalers, including NGOs. They then go and lend it out at quite high rates. And obviously, the more they do that and the more money they make, they're going to the banks and borrowing even more. And so they are sharing in that wealth. But at the expense of those people down the end of the chain who are paying very, very high rates indeed.
Yeah.
I mean, I've looked at it, 35% is almost, sort of normal.
Yeah.
But as you said earlier, there are people who are charging 5 to 10% per month. That's 60 to 120% a year per annum.
At the moment, going rate in the market is 5 to 10% for a month.
Per month?
For a month. So that is
What's that for? Consumption, production?
Consumption. Basically, that is for consumption. So you had to have a, because
where's the income to pay that?
It's like this. Now that is where these informal market, the lenders have come in, because they have no access to these regulated companies to get this money, because a lot of like red tapes involved there. So, and straightforward, when you go to a money lender in the local market, straight away you can borrow your money. Now, as I say, I did a research on this. Like if you take India, for each lot of 16,500 people, there's a branch of non-banking financial industry in India.
What's that same comparison here?
That is here in Sri Lanka, it's 10,500.
Wow.
We have 1,320 non-banking financial industry branches. And it's per a lot of 10,500, you get a branch of non-banking financial industry. So as I see now, between 10,500 and 16,500, there's a huge difference. So there's a vacuum which we can still cater. But only thing, even central bank doesn't want to give a new license to cater to this market segment. That is because this market segment has been filled by another market segment which is not mapped into the formal process. That can be these informal money lenders.
At News First, we usually look into matters that others don't.
Yeah.
And we do so always in the interest of the people, in the national interest. And you'll find that these questions are not raised elsewhere. And we do, because we believe in taking on these things. And you've obviously come here, Mr. Edrisinga, because you too can see what's happening here. It's not that we are against the banks flourishing, we are for everyone flourishing. And that's the problem. There's this anomaly. What can you do to help? Regulate and regularize this whole anomaly?
No, you have to, that's why these intermediate entities should come in.
Yeah.
Because you have to do a lot of research in this country to see what's the exact situation is. Because you still have a large appetite for credit in this country, but it is not being catered properly.
What's the level of saving in this country? Do you know? Very low, very high?
I would say, no, I just can't comment on that.
Yes, but I would imagine that in this climate, in this ambience of this economy, I'd imagine that the savings is quite low.
Yeah, it can
because
be.
Everyone I seem to know is always on this, what you said, on
that all depends, because if you take number of customers, that can be low. But if you take the amount of money coming into the deposit, it can be high, because that all depends on the capacity of the customer.
Right.
So that figures, I'm sorry,
No, that's fine. We'll get that and do a story on that.
Yeah.
But what can we do? I mean, these people,
so
our fellow citizens are getting mired in this abyss of debt.
True.
One after another for consumption.
So what because now you can't help that, because even like banks are also into this, because through credit cards,
Yeah.
they take money for consumption. And what happened was in 2015, with the new government coming in,
Yeah.
and they increased salaries of government servants by say rupees 10,000, and then bank got involved in that, and like they offered a lot of like credit facilities to these government sector employees, and they used the excess money what they got for these consumption purposes. So I think we as regulated bodies, the banks and non-banking financial industries as regulated bodies, should do responsible lending
That's
for
what-
the growth of this country. That's actually my concept, because we
how
have
can
to,
how can you achieve that responsible lending?
that it is going to be a long process. It's going to be
But a necessary process.
It's a necessary process. But only thing, we have to educate people how the money
Financial literacy.
that is right, exactly correct. You have to educate people how the money should be taken, and how the money should be spent. Now say the most of people of our country don't know how to use credit for their benefit. I will give you a good example. I'll give you. Say now the budget is around the corner.
Yeah.
So there can be like lot of items. There will be a price hike in many items. So at this moment, people can use their credit cards and buy products, and then later on, say after months' time,
Yeah.
those prices, the prices of the products, say electric items, or
Will go now.
will go now. So so then you get the benefit of using your credit card.
Right.
So these information should be passed on to the general public. So then they know how to use their credit for the betterment of their lives.
You just give me a good idea for a brand new website.
Yeah.
Because these sort of things need to be told.
Yeah.
Do you think, how can we take financial literacy right down to the end, to the sort of microfinance borrower, the Grameen type borrower? Right down there.
It can be like even take, it can be, we can educate our school children at
Yeah.
school level how to use credit.
Yeah.
And even at the societies which are operated at rural level,
Yeah.
we can educate the public
Yeah.
as to how the credit can be used.
I see. A viewer is pointing out that 10% a month compound interest is about 300% a year. It's obviously a serious problem. If it's 10% a month compounded and
Yes.
on balance, then
Yes.
yes.
That's the thing.
But if it's a straight 10%,
he must be talking about informal borrowings.
Indeed, he is.
Informal. Yes.
Yes.
This is what is happening. And the biggest problem there is this
All development banks are closed, and this appears to be encouraged by the IMF. When President Premadasa did his thing, that was like, that was like in development banks when he did his all those projects he did in terms of housing and the factories and so on. That was, I mean, we don't have leaders like that anymore, unfortunately. But like you say, how more involved should the banks get, more responsible towards the very high rates, and to try and reduce the involvement of the informal sector?
Well, let me touch on this in this manner.
Yeah.
Now, there's a huge risk involved in our present day credit evaluation, because these informal sector borrowings are not being mapped by Credit Information Bureau, that is CRIB. So as a result, when the credit officers of the financial sector evaluate their loan applications, they have no clue as to how they have borrowed money these customers borrowed money earlier.
Mr. Prasad Adesinghe, you've been a marvelous guest and very informative, and the messages are coming non-stop here. But unfortunately, we've run out of time. I'd like to invite you onto one of our longer programs, which is called Face the Nation, in which perhaps you can expand these and articulate these positions on with more time on our hands.
Right.
But thank you very much, Mr. Prasad Adesinghe, for being on Newsline. And I'm sorry that we couldn't take all your questions. There are so many. How do you stop banks sending people to offices, touting business? And there's always a couple of people who become suicidal because they cannot keep up with payments. There are several questions on those lines. And we'll put you on a different program, and we'll bring you all the answers that one seeks. Thank you very much for being with Newsline this morning. Do take care on those wet roads outside, and God bless.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.